Hi, welcome to Crime Clueless. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Laura.
It's a few minutes before 7 on a January night in 1980 on a road called Kane on the edge of a community college campus outside Portland, Oregon. And a car full of teenagers slows down, and not because anything's wrong exactly, but because there's a girl in the middle of the road. She's tall, she's young. She's waving her arms like she's trying to flag down a bus that isn't stopping. Her face looks like it's streaked with mud. Maybe it's blood. It's hard to tell in the headlights. One of the kids in the car will remember thinking, it's a prank. Somebody's messing around. The car kind of carefully eases around her and keeps going. A few minutes later, another driver slows down. She'll remember thinking the girl looked like, I don't know, maybe she was on drugs. She was moving a little too slow for someone who might be in danger. So that car keeps going too. Someone else sees her from further off and figures, I don't know, maybe she and the guy behind her are hitchhikers trying to catch a ride. Only one driver actually stops. She pulls over and the girl practically throws herself in front of her car. The driver gets out. There's a man that appeared there too now. He slings his arm over the girl, basically like they're a couple out for a walk. The driver asks if everything's okay. Neither one of them answers her, shrugs, gets back in her car, and the girl, muddy, bleeding out of options, turns and walks back towards the tree line with the man beside her. Nobody called the police that night. Not one of them. Because nobody watching thought they were looking at the last few minutes of someone's life. This is the story of Barbara Mae Tucker.
Oh, wow. That's quite the opening there for this story.
Heartbreaking, right?
Yeah. So sad. And really, it is like when you think it's hitchhikers or something, a lot of times you don't stop because you never know what's going to happen. But so sad that that was the situation and 3 people saw her and no one helped her. I mean, the one girl tried, but
right, didn't answer.
When they don't say anything, yeah, she was like, okay, see you later.
Right. Yeah. Ugh. And when you see the aftermath and you know you stopped and didn't do anything, that would be so difficult.
Yeah, that would be really hard.
Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about Barbara. And real quick, I will refer to a co-ed sometimes in this episode because that's how every single newspaper in 1980 described her. And I don't love it. In fact, I found at least 6 articles that called her, quote, a co-ed, but didn't name her. They didn't come up when I searched for her name. They only came up when I searched for other things related to this case. But anyways, Barbara Mae Tucker was born February 25th, 1960 in Portland, Oregon. She was the youngest of 7 kids in a blended family. Her parents, Albert and Louise Tucker, had 2 daughters together, Alice and Susan, and then they had Barbara. Barbara had 4 older half-siblings too. She had 2 half-sisters, Sherry and Linda, and 2 half-brothers, James and Robert.
Wow, 7 kids. That's a lot of kids.
It is. That's a full, busy household.
Yeah.
Barbara was the baby of the group. Her half-sister Linda was about 13 years old when Barbara was born, and she said she kind of basically helped raise her. She slept downstairs with her as a baby, all of that. And the 2 of them had these nicknames for each other that are really sweet. Linda called Barbara Shorty, and Barbara called Linda Mouse.
Was Barbara short? Is that why she called her Shorty?
No, that's the thing. She was the opposite of short. She was 5'11".
Maybe she was short when she was little and then had some kind of growth spurt.
Right.
That's funny, though. That'd be like if we called Kayla Shorty.
Totally. I mean, at one point, Kayla was shorter than me. So
that's true. Yeah. So maybe it started when she was young and just stuck.
Yes, right. Barbara would talk about growing up feeling awkward about her height. Linda said she used to tell her, honey, keep telling yourself you're cute, laugh at yourself, build a personality, and people will love you for you. which I don't know. I think a lot of really tall teenage girls maybe can relate to that. By 1980, Barbara had graduated from Cleveland High School in Portland. She'd played basketball there for 3 years. She also ran and she was a swimmer. She was described by people who knew her as ambitious, hardworking, a little bit of a goofball. She was also, and I love this detail, apparently very fussy with her hair and clothes. They would say it reportedly took her a solid 2 hours to get ready for school every single morning.
Wow. Yeah. Some of us need 2 hours.
Yeah, right.
Some of us don't want to get up 2 hours before we have to go, though.
Also accurate.
Yeah.
I'll do anything to not get up earlier.
Oh, I know. Me too. It's like, okay, how much can I do the night before? So I can
Yes.
roll out of the bed in the morning and do as little as possible,
Totally.
especially if you have to go early.
Yeah, like high
School.
school, super early.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
On top of that, she made a lot of her own clothes. She would sew, knit, crochet. Her sister Alice said she'd come home from school and go, I think I'm going to knit myself a top. And then an hour later, she'd come back downstairs with a shirt she'd made completely from scratch.
That's really cool and impressive for a teenager.
Yeah, I thought so. Now, she was heading to Mount Hood Community College just outside Portland in Gresham as a business major. She was working towards an associate's degree in business management, and she was really involved in a school club called DECA, which is the Distributive Education Clubs of America. It's basically a business and marketing club for students. And she'd been in DECA since high school. It was a big part of why she chose Mount Hood to go to specifically. She was on the college's Student Activities Council, and the year before she died, she'd actually run for vice president of the whole campus.
So she was genuinely involved in school, not just go to class and go home.
Yeah, it sounds like she was really involved. And on top of all of that, she worked part-time at Sears and at a store called Jafco to help pay for school. Her plan was to become a retail buyer for a big store after she graduated. So already working towards all of that with the jobs in college, etc. One of her instructors described her as, quote, a dedicated student who rarely missed class. She was outgoing, intelligent, had a lot of friends on campus. And there's one detail that I read that kind of stuck with me. Before she died, Barbara wrote her dad a poem for his birthday. And after she was killed, Mount Hood Community College actually put up a bronze memorial plaque on campus with part of that poem on it. And here's what it says, quote, I want to travel as far as I can go. I want to reach the joy that's in my soul and change the limitations that I know and feel my mind and spirit grow. I want to live, exist, to be, and hear the truth inside of me, end quote.
Wow. She wrote that poem for her dad for his birthday, you said?
Yeah, and just a couple weeks before she was murdered.
Oh, that's really sad.
I know. Let's walk through that day. This all happened on January 15th, 1980, which was a Tuesday. That afternoon, Barbara and her friend Lori, who lived near her in a student housing complex called Ash Mountain Apartments, went to the Gresham Athletic Club together. They worked out, spent some time in the sauna, and came back to the apartments a little bit before 6. Before they split up for the night, Lori invited Barbara to come by afterward for a bowl of mint chocolate chip ice cream. You know, if her night class let out early.
Such a normal, nothing plan going on for that night.
Yeah, normal, every college student type Tuesday.
Yeah.
Barbara had an evening class at Mount Hood, something like 7 to 10. So it was only one time a week, but for a long
Late.
stretch. Yeah, and pretty late. Her apartment was close enough that she could just walk there. So a few minutes before 7, she headed out. Her route took her across a road on campus called Kane Road or Kane Drive, depending on which year's newspaper you're reading. The name seems to shift a little. It was about a quarter mile from her apartment, roughly halfway to the building where her class met. Now, when I was going through all the original 1980 newspaper coverage, there's this level of specific on the record detail from witnesses that I don't think anyone can be fully prepared for. It's not just some people drove by, there are named people giving quotes to reporters days after it happened. So the very first police statements, just 2 days after the murder, come from a Gresham police sergeant named Larry Ward. And he tells reporters, quote, "We believe there probably were several cars she tried to flag down. Not one car, several."
So more than the handful we already talked about, do they think?
Yeah, more than that. And even more than we can fully account for by name. One witness told police, and this is almost verbatim from the police account, that they saw, quote, "somebody matching Miss Tucker's description running down Kane Street between her apartment and the campus, waving her hands and trying to stop cars." Ward mentions there was another person who didn't actually see her, but apparently heard her screams.
So there's an entire category of people in this story who aren't even in the drove past her group.
Mhm.
They're screaming for help in the dark, and that's it. That's the whole encounter.
Right. And
you're not calling police.
Exactly. They didn't call police at all. A reporter basically asked Sergeant Ward, "Isn't this strange that so many people saw a woman trying to flag down cars and almost nobody stopped?" And his answer is kind of stunning in how matter-of-fact it is. He says, quote, "I guess there's a lot of weird things that go on out there at the college." And then he adds, "Apparently it wasn't that unusual to see someone running down the street and trying to stop cars."
So it was like normal enough at this campus that seeing a woman running into traffic waving her arms didn't even register as anything to these people?
Yeah, that's basically what he's saying. And
Wow.
whether that's about the campus specifically or just about how people generally metabolize a stranger in distress at night, I don't know. I wasn't alive in 1980, but I can't imagine that that would just be normal. I'm sure it was, but it doesn't feel normal. It feels unsettling to me.
Yeah.
And it's not that people are heartless, it's that the human brain apparently has this very high bar for this is actually happening, especially at a quick glance at night through a car window. So, a young man named Kevin, who was 18 at the time, was in a car that drove past, and he thought he was seeing a prank. Then there's a man named Michael, a student on the GI Bill, who also drove past. He reported he thought the girl might be on drugs. He said she seemed unsteady and was moving strangely. There was a woman named Doreen who told police she assumed Barbara and the man behind her were hitchhikers trying to catch a ride. And then there was a woman named Barbara also. And this one kind of gets me. She said she saw mud or blood on Barbara's face, but she'd already turned into the parking lot and there was another car right behind her. And she said she needed to get to class. She said it didn't seem like she was frantic. She was moving kind of slow. If she really needs help, I thought, I don't know, someone else will stop.
It's like this bystander phenomenon.
Yeah,
Like everyone else thinks someone else is going to help and then nobody helps.
that's
Like
exactly it.
everyone thinks, oh, they're going to call the police. They're going to do something about it. I don't have to. I mean, we see that a lot. I know they always talk about that when you're doing CPR classes. Don't just say somebody call 911. Appoint somebody like you and you make eye contact with them. You call 911 because otherwise everyone thinks someone else is going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then no one does.
Mm-hmm. The bystander effect or that whole phenomenon, one of the original campus articles actually makes that same comparison. And they talk about the Kitty Genovese case, which is a heartbreaking one. And for anyone who doesn't know it, Kitty was a 28-year-old woman who was stabbed to death outside her apartment building in Queens, New York, back in 1964. And the story that has been studied ever since this happened, and it gets brought up when the bystander effect comes into play. It genuinely reshaped how psychologists study that bystander effect. So dozens of neighbors heard Kitty screaming. Not one of them called the police at the time. And I'll add one footnote here. Later reporting found that the original quote, I guess when the original reporting came out, it said 38 witnesses watched and did nothing. Since then, they found it's a little bit overstated. Some people didn't realize what they were hearing, and they did say at least one person called police, and someone did go to her and hold her as she was dying. But this story has stuck, and that story is actually what gave us the term bystander effect, which technically means the idea that the more people who are around when something bad happens, the less likely any one person is to step in because everyone assumes someone else will. So it makes sense why this article in 1980 about Barbara's case linked back to Kitty's case.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what the one person said. If she really needed help, I thought someone else would stop and help her because I was late, you know?
Exactly.
There's like a side note. There was that girl recently who got stabbed on the bus. Do you remember that? Or on the train?
Oh, yes.
And there's like blood running down like off the step of the train, and people just walk by and look at her and just keep walking. And I don't know if that's exactly the same, like the bystander effect, but people not realizing what's happening or not understanding what is going on.
Exactly.
It's hard because people will like look and then they just kept going. It's wild.
And they still assume someone's going to call. We're all seeing it. Someone's going to call.
Yeah. And the amount of people who were like sitting there on the train with her and had to have seen it happen or saw her collapse on the floor.
Yes.
Got up on their stop and left. They didn't understand what was happening, or they thought it was a prank or something, but
right.
Kind of the same thing. No one did anything. Someone finally did, but it took a lot of people.
So this message still hasn't broken through that don't assume other people are going to call.
Yeah.
Even,
and I think
60 years later? Yeah, right?
If you see something happen, check on them. Hey, are you okay? And if it is a prank, then whatever. At least you checked on them. But
there's nothing wrong with 4 calls going into 911. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair to these people in Barbara's case and Barbara's story, I guess nothing about this looked like what it was. Like you said, either like a prank, maybe a fight, maybe hitchhikers, maybe 2 people messing around. It didn't look like a murder in progress. And that's sort of the horror of it. And like we mentioned earlier, only one driver actually stopped. Her name was Lisa. She said that Barbara basically threw herself in front of her car. And it is so hard to imagine her trying to get help from all of these people and not being able to. So Lisa got out of her car. She saw a man with his arm kind of slung around Barbara. She thought they looked like they were a couple. And she asked what was wrong, and neither of them said anything. And I don't know why Barbara didn't say anything. I don't know if he had threatened her, or maybe she thought he had a gun with him pointed at her. I'm not sure. But when neither of these people said anything, Lisa got back in her car and she watched Barbara and the man walk towards this tree line on the other side of the road.
Yeah. So when they're walking together with his arm around her, it kind of looks like she's not struggling. What reason would you have to think that there's a problem?
Or to try to force her in your car? I don't know what she could have done if Barbara wasn't walking towards her.
And she probably thought everything was okay. She asked if they were okay. No one answered. They turned around and walked back to the tree line together. I mean, she had to have assumed that they were okay.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because you're not going to drive away if...
Well, you're not going to call the police and be like, hey, there's 2 people and they're hanging out together. Like, What are you going to
Right.
say
Right.
at that point?
And, it's not like she had a cell phone to call. We're in 1980. So it would have had to have been when she got home or.
Yeah.
I want to add one more layer here. The original police description of the attacker is pieced together from all of these roadside sightings just days after the murder. So the description says he was about 6'2", 185 pounds, and quoting the sergeant, quote, "We do know that the man was taller than the victim, and she was tall for a woman because we know Barbara was 5'11". So multiple independent people on this dark road at a glance all separately clocked this guy as noticeably tall.
I'm sure that's going to matter because if she's tall and he's even taller than her, that probably helps narrow down some people.
Yes. So that's going to matter a lot later, and we'll come back to it. But nobody called police, not the drivers, not the ones who heard her screams. The next confirmed sighting of Barbara Mae Tucker is her body. It's around 8 o'clock the next morning, Wednesday, January 16th. A fellow Mount Hood student on his way to class is walking near a spot on the south end of campus that everybody just called the lake parking lot. And it was named this because there was a small man-made lake nearby. And in the shrub-covered slope just off of that, he sees her.
Let me ask you, the night before, what time were these people seeing her? Do we know? Did she make it to that night class or
No,
did this happen on
was
her way?
before. This happened on her way to class. So sometime between like 6:57 is when she would have been heading over there, maybe a little earlier,
Right.
but all right in that 7 p.m. range. But because it's January, it's super dark by that time.
Right. So she never made it to her night class.
No.
And this kid, he was just on his way to class. He wasn't looking for anything, just found her out in the open there.
Yeah.
She wasn't hidden. Wow.
No, and the crime scene's kind of chaotic too. Like nobody was trying to cover this up or hide it. After he spotted her, that student called police immediately. Once officers arrived, they cordoned off a large area around the site and launched what the paper at the time called, quote, an extensive search for clues, going through the immediate scene, but also like the broader grounds around it. Barbara was found partially undressed, so nude from the waist down. She still had on a pair of red wool gloves. They found her purse and her textbooks scattered nearby. So again, nobody trying to clean up this scene or hide it or anything. The next day, Thursday, the state medical examiner's office had already released initial findings to reporters, which is honestly a fast turnaround for 1980. The state medical examiner, whose name was Dr. William Brady, did the autopsy. I did find conflicting information between some of the older internet sources and the actual 1980 reporting. So I went with the reporting from primary source because some write-ups of this case say she was strangled and beaten. The medical examiner at the time said specifically that she was not strangled. That's a direct quote. And he did work to correct reporting that had said otherwise. What he found was that she died almost immediately from multiple repeated blows to the head with a heavy object, a fast and overwhelming attack. There were marks on her hands suggesting she'd fought back. He also found that she'd been sexually assaulted, though the medical examiner noted there was no torture and no mutilation, just this incredibly brutal, fast attack.
Wow, that's horrifying and incredibly sad.
It's really sad.
Do we know what he hit her with?
No, we don't actually. And I looked. It's described in every single piece of reporting only ever as a heavy object. No source I found ever confirms a weapon was recovered or identified. There's one detail from later that January where police announced they were sending divers into that man-made lake near the crime scene to search for the murder weapon. But there's no follow-up reporting confirming if they ever found anything.
So the actual weapon is just still unknown then.
Mm-hmm. As far as every source I can find, yes. And, I was also trying to find along those same lines, was he carrying something when people saw the two of them? Or had he already gotten her over to the tree line and hit her and she managed to escape? And that's when she was running in the road trying to get cars. So maybe that's why they didn't see him holding anything, because they didn't tell that to police in any of the interviews or anything. But yeah, I was surprised it wasn't mentioned or even that I could find guessed at what that heavy blunt object was. Within the first 24 hours, police also released their first public information about the case. That same Thursday, the day after they found Barbara, a spokesman for the medical examiner's office confirmed to reporters that an autopsy was pending, and then they went and gave that report pretty quick right after. And the police department put out their first request to the public. Anyone who might have been driving by campus around 7 p.m. on Tuesday, or anyone who might have seen Barbara Tucker, was asked to come forward. Now, on Wednesday morning, so the morning that Barbara's body was found, her mother, Louise Tucker, is at home. She hears a report on the noon news about an unidentified woman who was found murdered near Mount Hood Community College. And something in her reacts to it immediately. She gets this pang. She tries calling Barbara's apartment. She gets no answer. That afternoon, Louise is on the phone with her sister, a woman named Ruth, and she tells her, "I'm really worried." And Ruth asks why. Louise says, "I just know it's someone I know." Because by that point, she'd met so many of Barbara's friends from Mount Hood that, quote, unidentified woman just felt too close. And Ruth tries to talk her down. She tells her, "There are thousands of girls at Mount Hood. Don't be worried." And the two of them keep talking. While they're on the phone, two men walk up to the Tucker house and ring the doorbell. Albert, Barbara's father, answers the door. He talks to them for a minute. Then he walks into the kitchen where Louise is sitting with the phone still in her hand. She said she looked at his face and it told her everything she needed to know before he even said a word. Ruth says that Louise screamed into the phone, "Ruth, Ruth, it's my Barbie," and hung up.
Oh, so heartbreaking.
Yeah, we don't always get the details of when that happens, but when we do, it's gut-wrenching.
Yeah, just listening to that pulls at my heartstrings.
Me
Just being
too.
a mom, I can't even imagine.
Even seeing that report, I would be freaking out too.
Yeah, and not being able to get a hold of your daughter who you know is there.
And you can reasonably tell yourself, "Oh, she's at class or she's at work. I'm sure she's fine." Just really some confirmation, but yeah.
Yeah, it's awful. Just that fear and panic, I can't even imagine.
Ugh, yeah. And I think what gets me the most about that piece specifically is just how ordinary everything is leading up to it. She's on the phone with her sister and her sister's reassuring her, it's probably nothing. And then all of a sudden, it's not nothing.
Yeah.
Barbara's funeral was that following Monday at 1:00 at Hinson Memorial Church, where she'd actually been baptized a couple years earlier and had been active in the church group. Over 450 people attended her funeral. The whole community was grieving with this family. She was buried at Lincoln Memorial Park, and instead of flowers, the family asked people to donate to DECA because Barbara had loved that club so much. Her survivors were listed in the newspaper as her parents, her two half-sisters, her two full sisters, and her two half-brothers. And the obituary says numerous aunts and uncles.
There's a lot of people who lost her all at once, and I'm sure a lot of the community felt that heartbreak too.
Yeah, absolutely. For her dad specifically, Albert reportedly he'd never really talk about Barbara's death again for the rest of his life. There's a quote from Louise about a year after it happened. She said, "He always leaves the room when I talk about her."
That's really sad.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the investigation. And honestly, Laura, once I really dug into the week by week coverage, I was kind of stunned by how much was happening and how fast. This wasn't a department sitting on their hands. This was an all out effort from day one.
That's good. We don't always see that. So it's always nice to hear the ones where we do.
Yes, right. And honestly, I found an article from the next fall that said a woman was reported missing, and the police department had responded to give a quote for this article. And they said, "Usually we wouldn't look into a missing person for 2 days, but because of what happened to Barbara, we went looking for her right away." And I was like, I'm sorry, what is with the 2 days?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. She was found safe in California. So
Well, that's good.
not a side tangent, sad story, but their quote from the police department had me going, are we kidding? Now, 2 days after she was found, on January 18th, the police released their first composite sketch. This was done by a police department artist based on witness descriptions. So they said, suspect, a man 20 to 25 years old, about 185 pounds, wearing a light-colored stocking cap and a dark blue nylon ski jacket. By the next day, the sketch had already generated what police describe as a wave of tip calls. So I put in this first sketch so you could see.
Yeah. There's some very distinguishing features that they said about him.
Right.
Like his jaw, his chin is very square in this picture.
Yeah. And the nose seems pretty specific.
Yeah.
Too.
And like his narrow face. Yeah.
Yes. Sergeant Ward told reporters, quote, "We're getting a lot of bits and pieces, phone calls from people who think they may have seen the man in the campus vicinity, and we're working very hard to follow up all the leads we can." And the description sharpens a little too. Witnesses are now putting him at about 6'2". Ward specifically tells reporters, "We do know that the man was taller than the victim."
So lots of people are calling him because they did see her and now they know what happened. They can give even a better picture.
Yeah.
And you're getting reports from so many different people.
And this is one of those really specific, important examples of how putting this stuff out there right away helps people call in to give you more information while it's still fresh on their mind. I think
before details fade.
Yeah, if it had been a month, that would have been a lot harder to narrow down that picture, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
On January 22nd, police released sketches of a possible witness, someone seen near a TriMet bus stop, which is really close to where Barbara was attacked. And he was spotted there at 7:03 that night. People had it nailed down to the minute because, again, we're only a few days out. And they're hoping that this person could add more detail to the suspect's identity. On January 24th, two different newspapers the same day had fresh new details. First, the witness lead from a couple days earlier turns out to be a dead end on its own. That particular man wasn't as close to the crime scene as they'd hoped, and he did come forward, but he didn't have any new information to add. Police also released an updated suspect description the same day, and this time based on interviews with, and this is a direct number from the lead detective, at least 95% of the students in Tuesday night classes at the college.
Oh, wow. So they basically interviewed everybody.
Yeah, basically everybody who was there on campus that night. The updated description is a little bit more specific. They say black or dark hair, an olive complexion, again, 6 feet tall, stocky, broad shoulders. The report calls it a square neck. And this is a direct quote. They said, he walked with a bold, arrogant strut. He's described as expensively dressed. They said a light beige, closely knit brown ski hat. They still stuck with the navy blue jacket, and then they said blue or gray pants. The Mount Hood student body, through a spokesman, put up a $1,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. The other paper covering the story that same day adds one more thread. The lead detective tells them that the olive complexion has led police to theorize the suspect might be of Maltese, Italian, or Arabic descent. And they announce that police divers are being sent to that small man-made lake near the crime scene because now they're specifically trying to find the murder weapon.
So they're not just working on the sketch, they're searching more in that scene too.
Right. They've got this kind of multi-front effort going on. On February...
What kind of DNA testing did we have back then?
They could find blood type like O, but they didn't have any of the more specific markers.
Okay. I was wondering if there was any other DNA left at the scene since she was assaulted, but
there was semen left at the scene, which we'll come back to, and it kind of makes me rage a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll hold on to that.
Yes. With the investigation on February 12th, so now we're almost a month in, investigators do something that we see a lot in cases in the 80s. They hypnotize a primary witness, hoping to draw out more detail than a normal interview could. The detective calls the resulting description the most accurate one they've received yet. And from that description, they produce a front profile and back views of the suspect, showing his clothes from multiple angles. And the description holds a lot of the same core details. So early 20s, 6 feet, stocky, that same swagger or arrogant strut, black eyebrows, dark eyes, high cheekbones, olive complexion, and the same clothing that we have already seen.
That does seem like a lot of consistent detail across a bunch of different people. So they probably felt pretty secure in their description, I guess.
Yeah, I think so too, because it's not just one eyewitness that they're going off of. They have so many in this case that are all saying a lot of the same details.
Right.
I do kind of wonder if it was a negative to put out the description and then get more details from more witnesses, because a lot of the details aren't right in the end. And I wonder if that influenced what they said, or if they were like, oh, 5 other people already said this. Maybe my memory's wrong. Maybe I'll go with that. I'm not sure, but, you know, and at the same time, it's like you have to put it out if you want people to call in to say, this looks like so-and-so, or I maybe recognize that person. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Police revealed in February also that they have a second, still unidentified witness that surfaced, and they're specifically looking for a white American mid to full-size car. They said multiple witnesses agree a car nearly hit Barbara as she ran into the road, and they want whoever was driving it to come forward. And 2 weeks before this, an FBI investigator had actually come out to Gresham specifically to consult on this case. And detectives say that they're actively implementing all of this FBI agent's suggestions.
So you've got the local police, the FBI, hypnosis, sketch artists, 450 people at the memorial, $1,000 reward. Feels like genuinely massive, well-resourced effort going on here.
Yeah, I think so. In the middle of all this, on February 7th, Barbara's half-sister Linda writes a public appeal. And I'll get back to that in a second, but I also want to give you the numbers because they back up just how much ground this investigation covered. So by the 6-month mark that July, police had interviewed more than 150 people. They developed and cleared 14 different suspects.
Wow.
13 people had taken polygraph tests. 7 people by then had gone through hypnosis, trying to jog loose any additional memories that they could get.
That is a lot of legwork going on for this case.
Yeah. Here's a sketch that came out after they did the hypnosis.
It is different.
It is different. You can see some of the same similarities, but the face is a lot. It's not as narrow. It's not as like hollow cheekbone type.
On his chin, that was like one of the first thing I noticed. His chin is not as square as it was in the first picture.
And I think this hypnosis picture, the face at least, looks a lot like who did it.
Oh,
so
okay.
it seems
This
like
one's
it kind
better.
of worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Much more than the first one. The first one almost looks scary,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
We'll link to those too so you can see them. There's a detective quoted anonymously in a later piece describing what it was like to work this specific case. They said, "We had pictures of Tucker on desks in various departments. You feel like you know her personally. They're at the murder scene, they're at the autopsy, and they have color photographs of all of it." And then he goes on, "You put in 16 hours a day. You're going through a lot of stress. You're becoming fatigued. You have to take a little time to get away."
Yeah. It's such a human detail. They aren't just names in a file to the people working on it.
Pictures of her all over.
Yeah.
That reminder that it's still unsolved.
Yeah.
A lieutenant overseeing the case around that time told a reporter that they were confident this wasn't some kind of personal revenge type crime, meaning they believed Barbara didn't know her attacker. And he said something else that I think is worth sitting with. "We're at the point where we can't proceed until we get something else. But it's certainly not dead-ended. Tip calls were still coming in every month. And meanwhile, on campus, the anxiety was still very real." Do you remember that missing person that I had mentioned where police launched this other search immediately? It was because she didn't show up to class. So it was immediately called in and they were immediately on top of it, even though it was 8-ish months later. The level of vigilance had just skyrocketed since this happened.
Yeah.
So going back to Linda's letter from February, she wrote in part about the Shorty and the Mouse nicknames, about the night Barbara was born. She said it was during a snowstorm. And she closed with this direct plea to readers. She said, "Please, if you can help in solving the brutal crime that happened against my baby sister, Shorty, come forward. Tell anything you know, heard, or saw."
You know, with everything that we've talked about, it just feels like this case should be solvable. Like they clearly have a lot to work with.
Yeah, they do have a lot to work with. I think the 80s of it all, not having the specific DNA match, doesn't help, but they have so many witnesses. They've got this sketch from so many different people. There's a lot here.
People who saw and talked to him, you know.
Exactly. As the investigation is moving, the community is fully mobilized around it, and the response reshapes some things almost immediately. By May of 1980, Mount Hood Community College does a full security overhaul. They start locking the campus gates at midnight and not reopening them until 6 a.m. They install an escort service so nobody has to walk to their car alone at night. They get new lighting in the parking lots, security cameras, a radio system. There are new locks, new keys, new alarms. They even cut back some of the shrubbery and trees around campus to increase visibility.
Oh, so basically the campus itself got redesigned around this one night too.
Exactly.
That's good though that they added all these new security features.
I agree. It means that they were taking it seriously and wanted to protect their college campus, their students.
Yep, for sure.
The campus security chief said something pretty interesting. He said, there has not been a change so much as a continuation of policies. There's been a lot of pressure on us, but we'd be almost in the same place without the tragedy. So, meaning some of this was probably already coming, and maybe Barbara's case poured gasoline on it. He even mentioned that just 2 days after she was killed, security found a young woman sitting alone in the campus theater after hours. And, everyone was on edge. They were all actively watching out for each other. That September, someone who read the article about the bystander effect thought shades of New York City. She basically said, is this what we're becoming? A place where people just watch something terrible happen and don't help. Now, when she read that, instead of just being upset about it, she did something. Her name was Sharon Kelly. She partnered with a local merchants association and a county sheriff's deputy. She built an entire neighborhood watch program from scratch. The idea was that local businesses would put a citizen watch sticker in their windows so that if something happened, anyone could just walk in and use their phone. You don't have to explain yourself. You didn't have to feel like you were intruding on a stranger.
Such a direct response. She didn't just feel bad. She did something about it and built a whole system.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Merchants spent over $200 just on logos and pamphlets for the first 1,000 members of that watch group. And Kelly said something at the time that has stuck with me. She said, we can't always expect government to do things for us. The responsibility for improving an area largely lies with the people who live there.
So between the new security at the college and this entire neighborhood watch program, this case is already changing how this whole community operates. Was Sharon Kelly, that was in New York though, right?
No, she is local to this community. She was comparing where they live to 1960s, 70s, 80s New York, saying, directly responding to the Kitty Genovese case, saying, how do we just have bystanders that watch this happen and nobody called police? We need some kind of community response where we don't just watch something happen and not contact police. We need a way that, no. I think that
I was confused, I think, because of the shades of New York City.
I didn't explain it very well.
And this whole community, neighborhood watch program, all that happened within less than a year.
Yeah.
From when Barbara was murdered.
Yeah. It was quite the community response pretty quick. About 6 months after this happened to Barbara, Louise, her mom, gives an interview. She says that every single morning, the first thing she thinks about is Barbara. Every night before bed, she'd go to her daughter's high school picture and say, "Good night, Barbie. I love you." And she gave a reporter this quote. She said, "I'm going to try very hard not to let her just become a statistic. But a tragedy like this is so absolutely senseless. If it takes 10 years, I don't care. I just can't let it rest. I just don't feel I can. She was too special."
That's such a specific kind of resolve. Not, I hope this gets solved, but I don't care how long it takes. We're solving this.
Absolutely.
Just that determination. It's amazing.
And based on everything we've walked through today, the sketches, the hundreds of interviews, the FBI, the hypnosis, the sheer number of people who saw pieces of this, you would think that resolve wouldn't have to hold out very long. But here's the thing. What actually ends up cracking this case open isn't another witness or another tip, sketch, polygraph. It's something that in January of 1980 doesn't even exist yet. It's not even a concept. Not as anything anyone investigating this case could have possibly reached for. And when it finally does arrive, it's going to point somewhere nobody in this entire investigation ever once considered.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. And that's where we're going to leave it for part 1.
Okay.
And I'm not giving you any more than that this time. Come back for part 2. All right. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If you want to read more about this case or see the sketches we mentioned, any of the newspaper articles, anything like that, we link all of those on our blog with the description of Barbara's story. It's on our website, crimeclueless.com, and we link it in the show notes. Connect with us on social media. We're at Crime Clueless on all social platforms. And most importantly, if you enjoyed today's episode, we would be so grateful if you would take a moment to rate our show. It helps us more than you know. Every new rating we see makes us excited, and we text each other.
Yeah.
So thank you for all of you who have rated us. It means everything. All right. And as always, remember, refuse to be clueless, careless, or caught off guard.
Not today, murderers.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.